And that is the most important question in the universe. So I'll ask you this morning, church, is your name in the book? There is nothing more important than that. Nothing at all in this whole lifetime more important than that. Is your name in the book? Verse 9. Verse 9. Revelation 13:9 says this, because this is the most important question in the universe. And God says this to us after the part about the book. He who has an ear, let him hear. He who can understand this, anyone who gets it. Do you get it? And if you get it, let it sink into you. Understand this. It's the most important question in the universe. Is your name in the book? If you've got an ear, if you've got an understanding, if you're a human being, there's no important message in the universe. Verse 10. If anyone is to go into captivity he will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword he will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of the saints. Believers, Christians, do you trust God that way? I mean, believers during the time of the tribulation, during this terrible time, when they are hunted down systematically and executed by the millions in the greatest, most terrible, most horrifying act of genocide the world has ever known, the Lord says to endure patiently. Not to fight back, not to lash back, but to endure faithfully during this time. Look, here's the point. God is so in control. We think so often He's out of control. When stuff happens to our life, when timetables don't work for us, when we're discouraged and despondent and life just doesn't seem to be working for us, we think God's timetable doesn't work for us anymore. God's not in control. How can He be in control and let all this stuff happen to me? How can He be in control and not come and rescue me? How can He be in control? But during the time of the tribulation, God has a message to those who are being systematically hunted down and executed by the millions of believers. And He says, during this time to be patient, during this time to endure, and during this time to be faithful. Even though you may be one of the ones who are killed, and even though you may be one of the ones who are jailed, simply because of your faith. So how are we doing? Do you know there's one thing that Satan can never take from you? This world may be able to kill you. This world may be able to imprison us and execute us at some point for our faith. I don't know. But there's one thing that Satan can never take from you. He can never take your faith if you're willing to be patient and wait on God. But we so quickly surrender it when things don't go our way. God says to be patient, to wait on Him, for His timetable is perfect. God is never early. God is never late. God is always on time. And then He says to endure, to accept, and wait, and to be faithful. Don't seek revenge. Don't take matters into your own hands, but be faithful. Keep that which is entrusted to you, that which Satan can never take away from you unless you're willing to hand it over to him. You know, I remember one day I was taking a clinical pastoral education. I thought I was really something, you know. And I was in this select group of pastors that were chosen, and we were going through the University of Virginia Medical Center, you know, this premier school, and it was 400 hours of intense training and all these things in a hospital and nursing home settings, you know, with people who are dying. going through major life things. And I mean, it was a really great course. And they told me that I needed to go see this old man who was like days from dying. And I needed to, he wanted to see the pastor. He wanted a chaplain, a pastor, whatever you wanted to call me at that moment when I was taking that course. And I was told to go to this room and knock on his door and talk to him because he wanted to talk to me. And so I remember walking around that particular wing and finally finding the door with the right, sequence of numbers on it, and just as I'm about to knock on the door, I hear this happy music coming from the room, like there's a party going on. And I think, this is the wrong door. They sent me to the wrong room. This guy's like dying, and there's a party going on in there. So I walk up and down the hallway kind of confused, and I'm thinking, this is the wrong room. They got this wrong. And so I pull the piece of paper out again, and I look at the number, and it's the same number. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to ask this guy which room I'm supposed to go to, because obviously I'm not at the right place. I knock on the door, and this guy comes to the music stops. The guy comes to the door with this great big smile on his face, and I say the name. I say, I'm looking for Mr. So-and-so, and he looks at me with this big smile and these great big warm eyes and shakes my hand. He says, I'm him. So I go in his room, and I just look at him for a while. I'm thinking, this guy is he's got this horrible form of cancer, and he's dying. I'm thinking, after a while, we talked for a few minutes. I said, I was knocking on your door, about to knock on your door, and I heard this really happy music. And he goes, yeah, that was me. I was playing the piano. I said, that was you playing the piano? He goes, yeah. I said, they told me to come up here and talk to you because you have terminal cancer and you wanted to see me. He goes, yeah, I do. We talked for a while, and I finally said to him, I said, how is it that you have this and you're so happy? I'd never seen anyone like that before. And he said, I'll tell you. He said, I was brought up in the church. Matter of fact, my dad was a pastor. He said, all my life I went to church. And I thought I was doing the right things, and I had a relationship with the Lord, and it was a pretty good one. But he said, when I found out that I had weeks to live, I finally found out the secret to life. I looked at him, I said, tell me the secret to life. And he goes, I finally learned how to let go. Yeah. I mean, that is really it, isn't it? He said, I finally learned that the most important thing in the world is just trusting Jesus. And that if I could really let go and trust Him so completely, even with the last minutes of my life, that I could truly be happy. And I thought, isn't it a shame that so many people go through their entire life and they never find that out? They fight and dig and complain and whine and work and toil and struggle because God doesn't show up on their timetable. And if we're really willing to just say, yes, Jesus,